future. No people at all. The future. Hello, is there anybody there? It seems I'm all alone again, does anybody care? This planet's empty, I see no signs of life. Please don't tell me that the human race did not survive. There are no people in the future. There are no people. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. It is Friday, December 15th, 2023. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Friday Politics Roundup. Yes, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. And each week we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. And I guess it's the Taylor's era in Pennsylvania through legislation. Welcome to that. You can help support this show, become a patron for as little as $5 a month. Head over to patreon.com/rcpress today. And you can also help out the show by going over our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you know every time that we go live. And if you're one of our awesome podcast listeners, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen on. Leave a comment, let other folks know why you like the show. Little things like this help other people find the show. This week. Well, we'll just talk about it in a minute. For more PA Progressive Talk, tune in to the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern. Check him out on his YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe to his podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Head on over to ricksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms. And you got to check out Sisters the Night Caucus podcast if you haven't already. The amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind this podcast rock the house. And they know where the bodies are buried. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. And subscribe to their podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get their podcast. And The Signal is a new podcast from the Bucks County Beacon. The Signal is hosted by the Beacon's editor-in-chief, Cyril Michaleko, and produced by yours truly. Twice a month, The Signal shines a light on the right-wing extremist currents streaming through Bucks County and beyond. Cyril invites guests who can provide insight, analysis, and organizing solutions so that we can steer the community toward calmer, saner, progressive roots. Check them out at thebuckscountybeacon.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcast. And also check out The Civic Circle, which is another podcast by the Bucks County Beacon, also produced by this guy right here, tackling politics and policy from a Gen Z lens. Sarah Zhang, Mallory Marson, and Alexandra Coffey are students from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and once a month they chat about activism, advocacy, and all the political happenings affecting their generation. Check them out at theciviccircle.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcast. And for all you gamers out there, man, it's the holiday season. We're in the thick of it. The Game Inn, that's with two N's. The Game Inn is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show. They've got everything for retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, walls of Funko Pops, and good grades on report cards. Get your kids discounts too. Oh man, they're great. Got a question about a game, looking for something hard to get? They've got you covered. Check them out on their Facebook page and follow them on Twitter at @thegameinns. That's with two N's. Shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. And if you find yourself in the Kutztown area, you have got to check out the Heart and Hearth Deli and Smokehouse. That is located at 466 West Main Street. That's kitty corner to the Kutztown University campus. The Heart and Hearth is an American bistro featuring barbecue and French-inspired fare, all with locally sourced and organic ingredients. Absolutely fantastic. I just stopped by there yesterday. Came home with their like a fruit galette, and then a couple of their hand pies. I got the brisket hand pie and the pork hand pie. Can't wait. We're gonna have him. Initially gonna have him for dinner last night, but it took me forever to get home, so we're gonna have him for lunch today. I'm very, very excited. So do go ahead and check him out. That's the Heart and Hearth Deli and Smokehouse. You can look him up on Instagram, look him up on Facebook, but head on over there at 466 West on West Main Street, kitty corner from the Kutztown University campus. Absolutely fantastic place. You will not be disappointed. And a special shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at @SongADayMan. That's @SongADayMan on Twitter. Look, everybody, if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. Support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Just simply go to patreon.com/rcpress. All the details. We're here for the fight and we need you. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement and the movement in the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month. Going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Well, welcome everybody. It is going to be our last show of 2023. The holiday season is upon us. It is crept up on me personally a little bit faster than expected after getting COVID, and then that taking some recovery time, and my kids got sick, and then at the end of my semester, all of that blah, 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 blah. I know. Everybody's got their thing, right? So, but here we are. And there was one more show I really wanted to have, one more Out to Coop Live I really wanted to have before the end of the year. But we're just going to have to wait on it. I just can't pull it off in time, given what my schedule has been, what it's going to be next week. So this is going to be it. If I can, I might, this is something I'm probably going to put out a poll on our Patreon and probably our social medias to see if people have nominations for the best shows of 2023. I think I did this last year too as well. And that was a lot of fun going through all of our shows from 2023 and then kind of like re-releasing them as kind of bonus episodes, so to speak, for that week between Christmas and New Year's. So I'm going to try to do that again this year, which will be kind of cool. I'm also going to be, I've mentioned this a couple times, doing some kind of reorganization, trying to finally have a little bit of time to try to fix some of the tech stuff here. Like there's like little things that happen, over the course of a year, where some setting on the recording device or on the streaming thing doesn't quite work, or there's an update and that changes things slightly, and then it gets irritating to me because the levels that I'm seeing on my screens or on my desktop are not the ones that are showing up in the actual YouTube stream, but they do show up in the audio stream. So it's weird stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing some of that. I'm going to really try to do this. I know I've threatened to do this now several times, but I've been wanting to. I want to devote a little time to kind of what has become kind of one of my little side projects is my Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and then thinking about some tabletop gaming things, and looking for things. I guess if I'm looking ahead to the new year, one of the things that I'm really trying to carve out space for myself for this coming year is doing stuff that is that feels like, I don't know, I want to say nurturance, but that's not the right word. It's more like doing things that seem generative, right? That the practice of them seem hopeful, and sustaining too as well. I mean, it might sound kind of corny or whatever, or I don't know. I don't even know even write the words for this, but I've spent a lot of time in my life, doing a lot of things that I think just like need to be done or I should do, as opposed to stuff that I really want to do. You know what I mean? And this right here, right, this podcast, right, in particular the Out the Coop Live one now, is something that I really want to do. I enjoy doing. right? And even as frustrating and as concerning as it feels like a contribution, right? I mean, it feels like when we're talking to folks on the show that are kind of filling out some of the context around what we're facing, both locally here in Bucks County, but more broadly in the country or beyond, it seems like conversations that are life giving. You know what I mean? But a lot of you know, the machinations of our political system and stuff, very often feels like it's not very sustaining. Like I was looking through, yesterday and then today, this morning before today's show, I was looking through the news and, just going to go do like another, news roundup. And then, I'm looking at like, just, this is what I'm seeing up. This is what I see on my screen right now when I go to Google News. Okay. It's Prince Harry was a victim of extensive phone hacking, UK High Court rules. And then Zelensky claims victory as EU agrees to open Ukraine membership talks. Hungary blocks EU aid for Ukraine. Europe isn't giving Ukraine the consistency it needs right now. Body hostages, and then Biden tells top advisors that Israel's, but then you've got the, Biden, they voted in the House to open an impeachment inquiry. Defense bills, sent to Biden despite conservative anger. The ongoing devastation in this, I don't even know what to call. I mean, can you really call what's happening in Gaza a war? I mean, I know they call it a war. I know Israel calls it a war. I know it's referred to as a war. But it's hard for me to kind of really look at something as a war that is so one-sided, and that doesn't mean we saw what Hamas did on, back in October. We saw the absolute horror of what they brought into Israel, right? So I'm not saying that right, there's these peaceful people and no, the Hamas is not, right? But the vast majority of Palestinians are not Hamas, right? They're not like warriors trying to kind of end Israel, just like the Jews that were slaughtered by Hamas, right? They're just civilians. They were thing, and this is whatever. Anyways, that's ongoing, and there's been just nonstop. There's been more and more stuff that comes out over every day. And sometimes the conversation around it, I find really frustrating, to say the least, right? If I'm going to be as diplomatic as possible. And just because it's like, I very often think about what I try to do as a teacher, right? Where in almost all my classes, what I try to do is weaken some students, like what a lot of students are trained to think, how they're trained to think in high school and even before that, right? And it's reinforced by our political system, by our media landscape and so on, is to view the world simply in pro-com terms. I always say it's you look at something, in pro-con terms, like pro-con, either or, on, off, black, white. I mean, it's like just in terms of these series of oppositions, it is an incredibly limiting way to view the world, right? And it's a way of precluding options, right? And I'm looking, and it's kind of worthwhile reading this. It's like, it's a quote from Ursula Le Guin when she was getting the, I think it was a National Book Award back in 2014. And she says, hard times are coming when we'll be wanting the voices of writers who can see alternatives to how we live now, can see through our fear-stricken society and its obsessive technologies to other ways of being, and even imagine real grounds for hope. We'll need writers who remember freedom, poets, visionaries, realists of a larger reality. and I think about what we can do in art and in writing and, different kinds of community spaces. And even in spaces like this, right, where we're not restricted to seeing the world in either or terms. Right? We don't have to accept the way things are as some sort of version of the future, right? Or some necessary development. No, we can say no. And we can understand that the world as it exists right now, in large part, is defined by and reinforced by and reproduced by those folks who control, who make decisions over the future of our lives. And then we can hope to have a broader impact in that. But anyways, and in my classes, so I always say, like, you think about any particular issue, right, that you're looking at, right? It's not a light switch, right? It's like a gem, with all these different facets that depending on how you move it and which one you look at, you're going to see something slightly different. Right? You're going to see different kinds of angles. And the goal of kind of creative, critical thinking, right, is to explore those angles, right? To try to broaden our understanding, right? So that we can better form by which to kind of act. Right? Now, I'm also very much, a realist, right? I fully know there's, that's why one of the reasons I think I studied rhetoric, right, was because at some point, philosophy doesn't cut it anymore, right? Philosophy is, your philosophy and examination and kind of critical analysis and all that stuff. At some point, you got to decide and do something, right? Right. And in a democracy, at some point, you have to choose, right? We can imagine that we have infinite numbers of choices, but look, I mean, it's the same kind of debate that comes up every single time, every single election about, do we vote for the Democrats or the Republicans? Should we vote for the Democrats? I'm fed up with the Democrats. I'm no longer going to vote for them. Okay, I get it. I understand the frustration and so that, but the reality is there is not another structure, right? There is not another party to choose from. If people really want to build third parties, then that's got to be happening every single week. Like if you look at the Working Families Parties, perfect example. The Working Families Party has been around for decades, right? They have been around for decades, and they have been working to build an actual working organization for decades. And their strategy changes depending on where they're located. Like, so for example, in New York State, where I grew up, right, the Working Family Parties has this kind of agreement, right, where they can actually be listed as a party, and because they nominate or they kind of decide to support the Democratic candidate. It doesn't have to be a Democratic candidate, but like a Democratic candidate, right? So the vote for that person, like, so say, for example, if I'm voting for Joe Biden, right? If Joe Biden is endorsed by the Working Families Party, and I go to vote, I don't have to vote for Biden on the Democratic Party ticket. I can vote for Biden on the Working Families Party ticket, right? And the votes still go to Joe Biden, right? Regardless of which one I press. But the difference is that in New York, so then when I click on the Working Families Party and I vote for the Working Families Party in New York, I assume it's still the same. I mean, unless they changed it. I mean, who knows? Cuomo was really not a fan of that whole project. But what it did is it was able to get the Working Families Party kind of get them past a certain percentage threshold, so that allows them to get on the ballot, that allows them kind of like ballot access and allows them access to, debates and things like this, right? That doesn't exist in Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, you see kind of much more kind of localized organizing. And now we see, after decades of work in places like Philadelphia, the Working Families Party actually has Working Family Party candidates who were elected to office, right, on city council, right? They're have cultivated candidates that end up kind of winning statewide rate, or kind of representational races, right? So, and that's a party building project. Right. But and this is why I respect the Working Families Parties so much, is because they know that they're not like pie in the sky. They don't just show up when it's like a presidential election and kind of grab whoever they can grab to make a candidate and make a big fuss about their issues or whatever. No, they do the work of building the party. And it's a long shot, right? I mean, not a long shot. It's a long road to building that kind of capacity, right? But the fact is that if the Democratic Party gets to the point where the Democratic Party is really falling apart, and there's an opportunity, they've actually have an infrastructure that they could do something with. And now if you take the Green Party, on the other hand, the Green Party doesn't really do anything in between elections, right? They might have meetups with small groups of people. They might kind of show up, say, I'm a member of the Green Party, but they don't build capacity. They don't door knock on a routine basis. They don't kind of cultivate candidates. They don't, do all these trainings, all the stuff that is about building party capacity. They don't build alliances with, and I'm not saying that the Green Party shouldn't exist or something like this. But I mean, look, I used to be a member of the Green Party, right? When I lived in Allentown, for example, when I first moved here, I was a member of the Green Party. And it seemed to me like, oh man, look, there's people that are doing stuff, right? And it had to do with a particular time. This is the earlier 2000s. And I said, okay, they seem to be interested in building capacity, but it just happened to be kind of close to an election and stuff like that. So it felt like, okay, this is going to be good. And yes, it might be true that you're not gonna have a Green Party candidate for president or something like this, but maybe start getting people elected locally, like in Lehigh Valley or in Allentown or something. But after a short period of time, it became clear that that was not what was happening, right? There was just an uptick because it was an election period, and frankly, that's fine. And then, a bunch of other stuff. You get this kind of like infighting and the holier than thou stuff that I don't mean that's true everywhere. I'm just saying that was happening. So I was like, just whatever. But that's a long-term project. Anyways, this is like, I did not expect to talk about this at all today. But my point being is that yes, it's important to decide at some point. This is why I'm thinking, look, when we're talking about our electoral politics right now, we see what happens when we allow the extremist to win, right? We saw it in our local school board elections. And what happened, right? The extremists win because people are playing team sports. They're not really thinking about, I got an R, and I got a D, and so I'm going to vote for the R, blah, blah, blah. And we had, basically our public school system, our public school district started handing over its curriculum to kind of Christian nationalists, right? I mean, that's like real consequence. We saw it at the national level, right? When kind of we said, okay, people, you're upset with the Democratic Party. You're not going to vote for the Democrats. You're going to go and you protest vote with Trump or protest vote for some kind of rando third party candidate. And then what happens, right? Okay, you get Trump in office, you get elected you get nominated and approved 3 Supreme Court justices, and you overturn Roe v. Wade. Right? Those are real consequences in people's lives. And, if we think about what happens in politics and outside of this kind of on-off either-or thing, it's like, this is why I really have never been a fan of, movements that say vote blue no matter who, or, or want to say Democratic pride or things like this. I'm not like a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat that I've, wearing Democratic gear around and things like this, Democratic Party gear around, or, all that kind of stuff, because I think the party itself is incredibly problematic, right? I mean, it's a really, especially at the leadership levels, right? But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be active in the Democratic Party. It's not because that's it, right? I mean, that is where the action is right now, right? The action is, whether you're talking locally or whatever, in the Democratic Party is the only place where you can actually have real conversations, right? And kind of, yes, there's conflicts and everybody's on the same exact page, but you have the opportunity to kind of push things in a more progressive way, right? That is, and we saw it locally here in Penridge. We saw it at the national level when you kind of get folks in the squad being elected and that having kind of like a snowball effect, getting more folks elected, breaking those barriers to get, oh my God, it's actually possible to elect people that actually do good things. Right? We don't have to listen to the party leadership at the top and do their bidding. No, we can do it ourselves, right? And we can challenge those kind of, corporate Democrats in places, and we can get rid of them and replace it with representatives from the people. I mean, like it or not, the Democratic Party is a coalition party of the rest of us, right? That's really what it is. I mean, as much as, I used to think of that, the parties were organized around ideological, these kind of coherent ideological differences. They are not, right? I mean, the Republicans more so now than they even were 20 years ago are ideologically like purist party. Democrats are all over the map. Like, it really is like the party of the rest of us. And because of the effed up ways that our political system works, that we have this two-party system instead of having a multi-party system, the interesting conversations are inside the Democratic Party right now. When I say interesting, I mean for those of us who believe in democracy and justice and kind of equality, multicultural society, all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So, and I turned on the news, at some point this week, and I was just, and it was like MSNBC, right? So the kind of like quote unquote liberal, kind of news. I can't remember if it was Chris Hayes or something like this, and I just listened again, like, to how these people talk, like, oh, Republicans, blah blah blah, and it's just this like people offering nothing other than team sports talking points, and it's sickening to me. And I recognize the classroom, right? What happens in the classroom is not the world, right? I mean, when you're involved in politics, you're involved in, having to make kind of real decisions, and politicians are having to, shore up what they believe is going to kind of get them elected next time and all that, and that's kind of important. But the rest of the time, right? We should have spaces where we get to consider the kind of range of perspectives, right? This is why I appreciate so much what they do with the Bucks County Beacon. I appreciate what I have, people that come on my show and Out to Coop Live. You're just thinking about not just promoting Democrats because they're Democrats, but actually talking to people and who are helping us better understand the world in which we act. When it comes down to the election process, that's a different thing, right? I mean, because then you've got these particular kind of candidates, but the rest of the time, that should be ours, right? Not just to play team sports, but to kind of think critically about our world. And so, anyways, this is the long way around of saying, so, things like, might sound stupid, but for me, this kind of designing stuff and playing like Dungeons and Dragons with my kids, for example, and my brother-in-law, right? And then kind of building out a world and campaigns, stuff like that. It feels like good. And I want to kind of expand that, it's like, I feel that those are the kinds of things that I might be able to kind of bring into our community, right? That's life-giving. And outside a little bit of that, constant churn of political hand-to-hand combat. And it's taken me for a while to kind of realize that that's been kind of going on in my own head, because for a long, long time, that's really where I was at. It was daily. I mean, even, the early days of Raging Chicken, for several years when we were primarily doing writing, that's what we did. And it was daily hand-to-hand combat is what that felt like. But if you want to build community, if you want to kind of be part of healing, right, and creating a culture of care and joy, you can't be fighting all the time. You can't be in hand-to-hand combat all the time. There's got to be those spaces, and it's been, I know fully well. I have not been. It's not been easy for me just as a person to embrace those spaces. And for the longest time, it just felt like fighting is what I did. But that's changed, and I don't know what exactly changed. I mean, I could go through a litany of things, in my work life and things like this. But it even happened in my local union, for example. I got to the point where it was tiring, right? Especially when you face an administration that is horrific. And I'm totally fine fighting with the administration. Right? I mean, I think that's what we should be doing. Right? when you're not providing healthcare or trying to deny healthcare to people who need life-saving healthcare, when you're like denying the fact that people are working in buildings that are destroying their health, when you're eliminating faculty members so that programs can't operate anymore. I mean, I could just go on and on and on while your PR says like you're great, when realize you're just kind of treating everybody who works for you like crap. That's a battle. I'm totally down to still doing it. But there's other kind of battles that I'm just kind of like checked out from now, I mean, I had this one discussion, there's this one back and forth when, there was another issue that came up on the campus, and then I had, and then there was, people from, our union, and we're having a kind of discussion in the union. And then just, the conversation went south, right? And people started going after each other. And I'm just like, you know what? I just can't do that. I'm just not invested in this kind of one-upmanship nonsense. And it's like, and so, okay, good luck. I mean, it's just, I can't, it's too destructive, right? It's too destructive to be at war with people who you should be working in community with, and I guess that's what I've been thinking a lot about the past several years. I've been thinking a lot about how I behave better, right? How can I, kind of engage with people in the world that's more generous, right? Kind of recognizing that, it's a good thing to always, to be, be on your toes about stuff, right? To be ready to kind of like, kind of go to battle on things. But that comes at a cost, comes at a cost too as well. If everything is about competition, right? If everything is about competition for who's better than everybody else, that's a problem. At least for me. I mean, other folks, you see them do it, and they're fine with it, right? That's the world that they want to live in, to show that they're better than the person sitting next to them, and then they're going to put the other person down, and this is like the Twitter sphere, right? I mean, this is kind of like the one-upmanship that's always kind of being played on there, the back and forth, the whatever. So that's kind of where I'm putting my brain to allow. And that's, that's the long way around of saying that, one of the things I wanted to do is to have, one of these sideshows, it's a good word for it, of like, like a D&D podcast, right? Just kind of, or not even podcast, but just kind of more like as part of my Patreon, just to kind of share some of the cool stuff that I've been thinking about with that. Things like that would be really, really awesome. So I'm going to, giving that some thought. And then, look, I've been at the point where, I'm not that long away from a time that I could retire. I could retire from my job. I mean, I'm nowhere near 65, but, I'm hitting the end of my service thing. So, I could actually, I'm at a point where I said, okay, how do I want to spend those, the second part of my life after this, everything that I had hoped for teaching at Kutztown. Not, I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of it is just, has been destroyed. So how do you think, how do I think about going on from there? And so that's what I'm going to be, putting a lot of my energy and time towards over this next month or so. So that's, I guess that's a heads up for everybody. So if you hear about that stuff, that's what we're doing. But that's what I got. So anyways, so like I said, this will be the last show of the year, and I appreciate those folks who are stopping by. I appreciate those folks who have been supporting us all throughout the year, and if you get a chance, to poke through some of the older shows, just to kind of remind you, I'll try to put out a list if I can. But I'd love to hear your feedback about what you thought were the best shows of the year. What are the ones that are most memorable? Particularly the interview shows is what I'm thinking of. If you got a Friday Politics Roundup that you think was awesome, that's great too as well. But really, I'm thinking about the interview shows, and I'll put together a little kind of best of for kind of in between the holidays. To put it out, so that'd be kind of fun. Anyways, I'm gonna end this a little bit earlier today. I've got some things I've got to do. This is the end of my semester. Most of my grading is already done. However, I do have some stragglers who have not handed in their stuff yet, so I'm gonna have to get to that and then finalize everything for their. Got to help that. Well, glad to hear that, Chuck. I think I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm glad that I'm not the only one who's thinking these kind of things. But I'm hoping that, I think in the Penridge area and say Central Bucks, for example, where we just had a really significant victory in the school board elections, I'm hoping that gives us a certain kind of, privilege right now to pause and reflect a bit, right? And thinking about moving forward. But I wish you all the best for the holidays too, Chuck, and a great New Year's ahead. Cheers to you. Cheers to everybody who tunes into our show. Cheers to everybody who has helped us out, who has been, become the core of our community, wherever your community may be, to help build that, the connections among all of us, a solidarity that is kind of lasting and sustainable. So I'm going to get back to work and finish off my year and then enjoy some holiday time with my family. And then I'll be back in the new year and be looking forward to it. And hopefully you'll have some kind of cool things to share with you about directions for Raging Chicken and upcoming Out to Coop live shows and stuff like that. Going to try to get a bunch of those ready and prepared, ready to go over break too as well. So anyways, everybody, I wish you and yours a super and happy holiday season. May this new year ahead of us in 2024 be a good one. I know it's going to, it's a presidential election year, so things are going to ramp up quickly. But I hope that we'll be able to all keep in mind and stay in touch with the connections of those people and who have helped build such amazing organizations in our community, connect with those people that we care about, and be part of a process of care. Yes, we can have our differences. Yes, we can have our disagreements. And yes, we're not always going to see on the same page. But remember, in the big picture is that building a society that is built on caring, right? Big on caring for each other, right? And caring for others. And for healing this planet, for healing our society, for healing these kind of, the gross inequalities and violences in our society. That seems like to be a worthwhile project investing in for the foreseeable future. So I bid all of you a happy 2023 or goodbye to 2023. I wish you the best for this holiday season, wish you the best for the new year, and we'll see you on the flip side, everybody. To remind you, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. You can help support this show by heading over to our podcast. I'm heading over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/RC Press, where you can become a supporter for as little as $5 a month. Happy holidays, everybody. Here's to it. See ya!